Welcome to Profit Boss Radio, where successful women have paved the road to their own financial freedom. Each week, your host, Hillary Hendershot, financial coach, money mindset expert, and experienced wealth manager, will help you discover the keys to the wealth and peace of mind you want and deserve in her no-nonsense and authentic style. Starting right now.
Welcome to episode 36. I'm Hillary Hendershot, your host. So this is the final week in Women's Financial Freedom Month, and I want to send out a really big thank you to those of you who've reached out, are commenting and interacting in the Facebook group, and especially those of you who have scheduled a call with me. I know that you are really digging in and doing the work that needs to be done, and I wanted to read just a couple of comments from the Facebook group. From Anna, Hillary Hendershot, a big thank you and virtual hug to you. I love your podcast, and the last two have especially struck a chord. I've booked my 15-minute call with you, and I'm so looking forward to it, as well as the next podcast. Thank you for being so passionate and generous with your purpose. Also from Pascal, I hope I'm saying that right. I love your podcasts, Hillary, which I have not only discovered through this group, but I've come to appreciate more because I'm understanding the underlying principles of good and wise financial management. Love it. And then just today, I heard from Kiernan. Hi, Hillary Hendershot. Thanks so much for your thoughtful approach to talking about money. I find it exceptionally helpful in carving out action steps towards a financially stable future. Episode 17, How to Ask for a Raise and Get It with Shanna Landolt, encouraged me to get the raise I deserved, a 12% increase. You rock. Your podcasts rock. My commute now rocks. Kiernan, you rock. So that is amazing, ladies. Thank you. And thank you for being so engaged. And today we're talking about investing because investing in the right mix of mutual funds is what allows you to put your hard-earned savings to work for you. Your dollars should work for you so that you can build true wealth, stand on your own 2 feet, and compound your returns and achieve your biggest dreams. Today, as my guest on the show, I actually have for you a woman whose career I want to showcase because she's incredibly successful and she does work in the investing world. So she's a bit of a rare bird, but then this woman is actually very special to me and my firm and my clients because her role in my firm is that she's my chief investment officer. So you want to listen to this episode if you're at that point where you're thinking about what you're investing in or wondering what the heck you're invested in. It's not a topic you need to become an expert in, but you do need to find someone to trust that will do that for you. So a lot of this content this month has been about demonstrating to you what I've done in my firm to justify that kind of trust. And today's episode is just going to give you more insight into what professionals are doing out there to enable and empower you financially. So Payel Farasat is my guest today, and she's my firm's chief investment officer or CIO. So what does that mean? Well, I partner with an organization I have a very long-standing relationship with, decades long, literally. That firm is called Loring Ward. And through Loring Ward, my clients and I get access to some of the most well-known and successful academic finance minds in the world. So I have a partnership that puts a team of experts in charge of the investment solution I implement in client portfolios. You'll hear Payel mention some names when she talks in the interview about how exciting it was for her to get to work with them when she came to Loring Ward. They might not be household names to you, but in the world of finance, many of these people are literally heroes. Harry Markowitz, Jean Fama, Ken French, Myron Scholes, and Mayor Statman are just a few of those names. These luminaries and the results of their research work together in my firm's investment committee and do actually have their hands on my client portfolios. I frankly couldn't imagine a better solution. And the difference between this and, say, the traditional Wall Street model is that the people in charge are academics whose compensation doesn't depend on returns. In other words, they don't have a horse in the race. They're paid to be thinkers and the implementers of the best strategy. They're not producers. And that creates the right incentives that lead to trust and balanced outcomes. Payel Farasat directs the investment policy, research, and portfolio management for Loring Ward. She also chairs the firm's investment committee and leads the investment team. Prior to Loring Ward, she was at Charles Schwab for 7 years and most recently as Regional Vice President of Investment Solutions. Before joining Schwab, she was a financial advisor with Ameriprise Financial. Payel earned a bachelor's in economics with a double minor in computer science and business administration from the University of California at Berkeley and a master of science in financial analysis from the University of San Francisco, both with high honors. Also, Payel is balancing being a powerhouse with being a successful mom. She and her husband, Joe, have 3 sons and a daughter. She also loves to travel. She loves volunteering her time for causes such as fighting children's disease, promoting education, and animal rescue. Woman after my own heart. I think as Payel shares today, you will get a sense of her life philosophy too, which she says has to do with focusing on what she can control, setting goals and achieving them, asking for help where she needs it, using her skills and smarts to find positive outcomes, and just ignoring the rest. I think we can all learn from Payel, and I hope you enjoy the interview. Welcome to Profit Boss Radio. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you for having me, Hillary.
I have been really excited to interview you, both because I respect you so much professionally, but you have this really interesting career evolution. So you started as a financial advisor in the finance world, and now you're a chief investment officer, which is like super sexy. And we'll get to that. But I want to start from the beginning. Talk about why you started as a financial advisor.
So I started my career out in high tech. And this is when technology was in. And what I realized very quickly was, as beautiful as technology is, what's missing, or what was missing from the technology industry back then, was the people element. I was so far removed from the actual consumer of my work, and that people element was missing, that I started to look into what industries could be all about people. And so that brought me to being a financial advisor. Luckily, I had the right degrees. I had the right education to pursue that and to switch gears from high tech to investment management. But it was really that missing people connection. I like helping people, and that was missing in high tech for me.
Wow, that's really interesting. And so, because most people think of, this is the perception publicly, is that a financial advisor role is a salesperson role. And so I guess you really saw it as being about people.
Right. And I have to tell you, the perception is not a false one. It does happen that behind closed doors, behind big firms, behind those shiny billboards and glossy brochures, there could be that mentality of treating investment management, financial planning as a sales item. You know, many companies are structured and train their advisors to see that way, at least to get their career started. That's reality. It is what happens. Now, I never took to that part of it because I transitioned for people reasons. What drove me was the fact that I was managing someone's hard-earned assets. They've worked very hard their entire life to have that $100,000 or that $1 million or that $20 million. It didn't matter what the amount was. It was the fact that someone has worked very hard and saved, you know, foregoing a lot of luxuries, foregoing a lot of desires. They've saved up that money for the future.
So did you feel that that need to interact directly with the consumer was fulfilled?
Yes,
by your role?
Absolutely. It must. In order to be a great advisor, and you know this, you do this, in order to be a great advisor, you have to be talking to your clients all the time and being in touch with them about their lives, not just about their money, but about their entire lives, their goals, their dreams, their fears. And so, yeah, it was absolutely fulfilled because I was every day talking to clients. I had a schedule to talk to clients many times a year. I was part of their weddings and bar mitzvahs and baptisms. And I mean, it was just a great time to be part of so many families' lives. And that's the joy of being an advisor.
So beginning your career as you did at Ameriprise, did you start with no clients?
No clients.
You started with no clients. And any paycheck?
No paycheck. Okay. So we had a draw.
Okay.
A draw is where, as you make income, you have to pay the company back for allowing you to use their resources, their offices and printers and phones. We got some leads, but we did not get any clients handed to us. We had to start from the ground up. And I appreciate that experience. It was really tough. I started as a cohort of I think 150, and then I was the last one standing who actually ended up being
out of 150.
Yeah, in just my one cohort, and there was many cohorts a year. So, but what it did was it was extensive training and rigorous training on things that are not just technical from a financial perspective or numbers perspective or analysis perspective, but training in terms of how to speak with clients, how to ask questions, how to elicit their choices, their preferences, their dreams, their goals, how to get them to open up. How to know when something's sensitive and you need to back off, how to get the families involved, how to get the wife who's not talking in the background and saying anything to speak up and say, what would you like in your portfolio? What is your risk tolerance? How to get the kids involved because you know that it's a family thing. Money is a family thing. So they taught all of that too. It was not just how to analyze and put together portfolios and financial plans, but they also taught emotional competence.
Oh, good.
EQ. I got hung up on a lot and because we had to cold call, pick up the phone book and just call somebody and ask them if they'd like to hire you as an advisor. Mm-hmm. And that was hard because we got hung up on a lot. And so, it taught me how to be strong emotionally and gave me some skills intellectually and gave me all these relationship skills that intuitively, innately loved, but I didn't have those skills till I actually did it.
So here you are, this uber technical, educated woman sitting in a room with a phone, getting hung up on.
Yes. Many times a day.
Right. I mean, there are days when you're cold calling, and I haven't done cold calling in this role. I came into the business differently, but I did cold calling for another organization, a startup that I worked for in the .com bomb bust. And there are days when you don't do anything but get hung up on.
Right.
So what are you saying to yourself as this is happening?
You find purpose in what you do. And the purpose was to find a client that was a good fit for the company and for you and that you were a good fit for. Mm-hmm. That there was a connection where there was mutual respect and mutual understanding and you were going to be able to help them and they were receptive to that help. It's like a gift. If someone's not ready to receive a gift, they're not going to take it the way you want to give it. So It was really finding the match. It was matchmaking. And so I found purpose in those calls. This is before cold calling was illegal and do not call list existed. I mean, we called everybody, anybody. And you know what? I had some wonderful conversations with people who just instantly heard my voice and there was something there and they just wanted to keep talking about their finances. I mean, if you think about the psychology of that, how crazy is that? To talk to a random person about how much you have in your 401k and how it's being managed and if you're happy with it.
Right.
But we only had those calls to get them into a meeting. And it was at the meeting that we actually got the facts. But on those calls, these people are sharing their life's joys and pains and savings and everything with you. And so it's finding purpose in the work. It's believing that there's purpose in the work even when you're getting hung up on. And honestly, sometimes it was weeks that there was no one who wanted to talk or connect. It was not just a day full of hang-ups, it was weeks. So having emotional competence is really important for women, but for any professional as you're building your career and venturing into something new.
So you're the last woman standing in a cohort of 150.
Right.
And then what do they give you? A corner office with a skyline view?
Yeah. I mean, it's not that grand, but yeah, it was a milestone. I broke all the records, all the times in which I was supposed to pass all the levels. There's lots of levels in Ameriprise you have to cross, and each level you learn something new and then you moved on to the next level and the levels got smaller. It's kind of like Dancing with the Stars. You start with a big group of amazing people and then you end up like the top 4, and then there's only one person standing at the end. But yeah, you do get your own practice. You've built a book now. I had a very sizable book, even though I was very young.
What do you mean by book?
Book would be a client base.
Yeah.
And that's, again, Ameriprise terms, right? Yeah. And we don't use those terms anymore, but it comes back into my memory bank as I talk through it. But it's a client base. It's basically what you manage, assets under your management.
So at this point, you're probably thinking, I'm on my way up.
Yep.
I've found the thing. I've made it.
Yes.
And what happens next?
So I brought it to a point where I did not have to call anybody. I grew my practice purely and solely through referrals. And Ameriprise actually did a great job training us on how to ask for referrals gracefully without being pushy and salesy, but really how to ask for referrals. But it's hard asking for referrals, and you know that. You have to get your practice to a point where people want to refer to you without you asking them for that help because they find the value and they want to share that value with other people. So I needed to take everything I learned at Ameriprise to the next level because that's where I was most comfortable. And so I got my practice to that level. And then it was a choice of, do I partner up with another advisor? Do I hire a paraplanner? I mean, now the client base, the assets under management are growing to a point where it can be a one-person shop, even with a firm's support. And that's when I decided that I wanted to learn a little bit more. My learning was not done yet, so I went back to grad school. And yeah, I know. On top of having a full-time practice and working full-time.
Oh, so you didn't quit?
No,
okay.
no. I have not had a break in my employment. I actually went straight to grad school. So I had full-time grad school on the weekends and an advisory career on the weekdays.
And what was your graduate degree in?
Master's of Science in Financial Analysis. It's a graduate version of the CFA curriculum.
Oh my goodness.
Yes, but it's full-time, 2 years. And it was a lot of academic learning. And luckily I learned to study works of geniuses like Markowitz and Fama French and Scholz and folks I get to work with through my Loring Ward experience. So believe me, when I joined Loring Ward, I was like a kid in a candy store because I was actually getting to work with people I'd idolized and studied because they're on our investment committee and we work with them through DFA, a relationship with Dimensional Fund. So it's been a dream come true in more than one way.
So at that time, you're at Ameriprise. Being a sales organization, did you feel it was fairly egalitarian from a gender perspective, or did you feel like a woman in a man's world?
Look, most advisors are men. It's a fact. Let's go back to college. When I was going to college, in the degrees that I was studying, it was mostly men. I studied computer science, economics, and business administration. Those were mostly dominated in my classroom were mostly men. Now that ratio became even smaller, women to men, when I went into the workforce. So yeah, egalitarian is a relative term. It's how you hold your presence regardless of how many of you there are in the room. So there's fewer women in collegiate world.
Sure, but I'm not talking about just about being outnumbered. Do you face actual kind of resistance, or was there the old boys club, or people have said things to me like, do you answer the phones?
Oh, absolutely. You know that's just part of life. You get the best example I can give you, and I don't mean this in a way that someone was discriminatory, because I don't think I meant it that way, but everyone thinks I'm male because of my name. Because my name is not Hillary, where it's a female name. Mm-hmm. It's Payel, and most people don't know the gender of that name. So most people, I would pick up the phone and say, "Hi, this is Payel Farasat," and they would say, "Oh, you're a girl?" And I didn't know what to make of that, but they were like, I was expecting a guy, or I would walk into a meeting for my first meeting as an advisor, and they'd be like, "Oh, I didn't think I was going to have a female advisor." And I said, "Is that going to be a problem?" So it's really your perspective. You're going to get that. You're going to get the boys club. You're going to get the, like, for example, hobbies, right? After work hobbies are always male oriented. It could be sports. Maybe a female's not into sports. Maybe a female is into sports. When you're a minority, there's some of the things that happen are based on what the majority likes. But I never thought of that as like directed at me. It was not personal. If it happened, I let it roll off my back.
You're just rolling with the punches.
You know what? I wanted to focus my energy on things I could control and I could change. And that's what my work and my impact would be. And I try to fret very little on all the noise and minutia and people trying to, be clubby and cliquey. I couldn't control that. So I just chose to control what I could.
Okay. Well, that's probably a good example of controlling your perspective, really staying focused on what matters.
Yes.
So I have to imagine at this point, you graduate with this degree that's so technical, I can't even repeat the name of it. And you are probably, Ameriprise is putting you on its shoulders and carting you around and everything's going well. And so how did you end up not staying and not just really capitalizing on that success?
No, it's a great question. It was a milestone in my life because I built this practice over a decade with blood, sweat, and tears. It didn't come easy. I didn't buy it. I didn't inherit it. And then I get this degree and I actually learned a lot about investments, a lot more than I learned at Ameriprise. Mm-hmm. I took every investment class out there to the next degree, to the graduate level. Mm-hmm. And I realized I wanted to specialize. I was a generalist as an advisor, as an Ameriprise advisor. I wanted to be a specialist. I was an independent Ameriprise advisor, but I was not a registered RIA. So I couldn't just do whatever I felt like from an investments arena. I still had guidelines within which I could operate. So in order for me to specialize in anything, let's say it was fixed income or whatever it was, that was not the arena. And
did you have a sense of what you wanted to specialize in?
Yes. So what I wanted to specialize in was fixed income and alternatives. So I fell in love with bonds, and I fell in love with the fact that there are alternative ways of looking at the world. And so I said, this is going to be very interesting to do more of this because I don't do enough of this in my current practice. Mm-hmm. And, as luck would have it, or timing or karma, whatever you call it, a friend of mine at Schwab called me and said, there's a position open that I think you'd be perfect for. And it combines a zero coupon bond with calls on the S&P 500, which are two things you love. Do you want to come in for an interview?
What's up? This is Hillary breaking in just to do a little bit of definitions here. Payel is just talking about two specific kinds of investments. Zero coupon bonds are bonds that pay no interest, and calls on the S&P 500 are a particular kind of, it's kind of like a way to gamble on which direction the S&P 500 is going to go. The S&P 500 is an index. It either goes up or down. And if you own a call or a put on the S&P 500, it's just a contract that says, I'm going to make money if the S&P 500 goes up, and I'm going to lose money if the S&P 500 goes down in the near-term future, or vice versa. That's it. That's what she's talking about.
And so I go into the specialist role, and it was amazing. I got to use a lot of my academic knowledge that I just acquired over the last 2 years. And then I did that for almost 5 years. And then it was time to come back and use all of the information I had to come back to a generalist role in my role now, which is very different, but it's very similar to what I started out my career with.
So why did you come to work for Loring Ward? Schwab is a huge organization. Ameriprise is a huge organization. Loring Ward is relatively small. What inspired you?
I think it's the fact that I've worked in large organizations, and Loring Ward is large, but not as large as those organizations. And I feel like instead of being able to help hundreds of people through being an advisor, even through Ameriprise, by coming to Loring Ward, I would be, as a CIO, I'd be able to help thousands of people. So it was really scale. It was really shifting the perspective, going to a smaller sized firm, but being able to help more people.
And so actually you impact my clients, right? I've actually hired Loring Ward to work on my behalf. Through Loring Ward, my clients get access to a world-renowned investment committee. You're at the head of that. Can you say a little bit about what you do for advisors like me?
It's such an amazing role because I feel like I get to partner up with so many different advisors who do it so differently and so similarly, and they're using Loring Ward's expertise and using the time that they're not working on the investments aspect, worrying about the investments aspect. They're using that time, they're spending that time where it really should go. And going back to my original point, it's with the people, it's with the consumers of your work, really getting deep into their lives, into their goals and dreams, and seeing if everything that you're doing for them is actually getting them to that goal. And so my work here in Loring Ward with working with advisors is really to help give you everything that you would need so that you are not worrying about the investments piece. So whether it be the investment committee, it be our model portfolios, it be our rebalancing, whether it be our capital market assumptions, whether it be writing, publishing, blogs, doing interviews like this, whatever helps an advisor spend quality time and give quality effort with their clients is what I'm here to do and support.
And I think that's a whole new perspective on the advisor's role, because right up and through probably the end or the middle of the 1990s, the advisor's role was to maximize terminal values of the portfolio. It was maximum returns. And just 2 weeks before this episode airs, I've aired an episode where I spoke with a woman named Manisha Thakur. And she had kind of a similar similar career progression to you. And she was talking about how, she came up in these Wall Street firms as a CFA and a portfolio manager, and how it was all about returns. And she really feels like, and I think that you might agree, that old paradigm of maximum returns, first of all, we're kind of rejecting it because it makes people unhappy in their lives. Mm-hmm. But secondly, I think what people don't understand is that investment portfolios are best done by the investments experts. And so my role as an advisor isn't to play with the top finance minds in the world, which that's you and the investment committee, that we're outsourcing that there are best practices. It's all consolidated at this point.
Yes.
I don't know if I got that out right. What would you say? Is there anything you would add to that?
No, that's spot on. We, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, it was all about product. And it was about pushing whatever was the latest, greatest product.
What's hot?
Whatever's hot. Hot stocks, hot bonds, and then it became hot mutual funds, and then it became hot ETFs. I mean, we can keep going, right? But I think what's being rejected...
Hedge funds were the thing for
then
a while.
Hot hedge funds, hot derivatives. I mean, we go there. We go there as an industry. Wall Street goes there. But I think what's wisely being done is there's a rejection of, I don't want what's hot. I want what's appropriate. And can my advisor help me figure out what's appropriate? And then can they leverage, to your point, investment professionals that do this all day long?
Right.
Every day, all day. And that's all they do. Use and outsource and leverage those folks. And not just one person or the other. So not just me, but really a team of diverse investment professionals who sometimes are contrarian and are contradicting each other, because that's the beauty of having diversity, is you want different ideas. You don't want groupthink, they call it. Everyone thinking the same. Mm-hmm. You want people who think differently to work together and come to a consensus. And that's what we offer to you, is the consensus of many different minds, many different ways of doing this.
Mm-hmm. But many different well-educated minds.
They're all educated and experienced, and Nobel laureates and PhDs and masters and CFAs and, it's a very diverse group.
And I think that's a pitfall that people can fall into, is both philosophically in their lives, people might find themselves inclined to the DIY lifestyle, right? You can craft recipes at home and you're doing projects off Pinterest. And so people fall into thinking, I can do my own investing. And in a world where you have nothing to compare your results to, how are you going to know, right? You have what you produce and that's it.
Right.
And then, alternatively is you're in a particular narrow or niche field where you learn to respect a certain kind of person. For example, in technology, technologists tend to prefer technologists. And so they'll listen to someone who's not an investing expert when it comes to investing. And I'm not trying to toot I am trying to toot your horn. But what I'm saying is I think people don't realize there really are investing experts out there, and there is a value add to having those people on your team. And that portfolio construction is really, really important. It makes a huge difference over time. It's not just buy 2 index funds.
Yeah, it is absolutely. It's an evolutionary item that's so important. It's not a set it and forget about it. A lot of work should and does go into creating optimized, optimal, efficient portfolios.
Right.
And that work has to be done and redone daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, yearly. It's good stuff. And the portfolio construction needs to be married with behavioral science, with the psychology of buying and selling and investing, the psychology of men versus women when it comes to risk tolerance, the social aspects of spending and saving, the cultural aspects of working and retiring. There's so much that goes into building portfolios that continue to tweak it to keep it to be optimal, that I feel it's best done by experts who just focus on that all the time. And they're diverse in their opinions. They're not all the same thinkers. They're different. And marrying that and coming to a consensus is what I do, is helping consensus be brought when you have differing viewpoints on portfolio construction and behavioral science being married into it.
And isn't it a blessing that investors can get access to world-class thinkers like you and Harry Markowitz and Mayor Statman at an affordable price?
Yeah. I mean, if you were to recreate that, even as an advisor, let alone as an investor, if you were trying to recreate the investment committee, it would be very expensive.
Out of reach for most people.
Yeah, out of reach. Impossible, perhaps. Yeah. And then the other thing is, there's a lot of experts out there. So at Loring Ward, we have a think tank. We work with not just Harry Markowitz and Mayor Statman, who are officially on our investment committee, but what many folks don't know is we work with Sam Savage, we work with George Chaco, we work with many experts that are out there who have specialties and expertise in risk and liquidity and other things that we draw in as part of a firm. That is invaluable. And it's very, very difficult, if not impossible, to replicate yourself if you're doing it yourself.
The intellectual capital is very deep. Right. And if you're out there trying to go it on your own, you don't know what you don't know.
Right. It's very deep and it's very diverse, and you don't know what it is until you have experienced it. So yeah, I agree.
And it's very difficult to measure what you don't produce.
Right.
So let me just transition from this conversation, because I want to remind you, Profit Boss, as you're listening, that my offer to you during Women's Financial Freedom Month is for you to schedule a complimentary call with me to discuss your own financial situation in life. If my conversation with Payel is exciting for you and you're starting to get a sense of the robust resources I have available to you as my client, then let's talk. I'm inviting you to schedule a 15-minute private call with me where we can connect and see if we might be a good fit to work together. I promise to be completely honest, honor and respect your time, and also to provide value in the call, whether we decide to work together or not. Legally, I can only work with people who have a primary residence in the U.S., and I do work with people who have at least $250,000 of investable assets. So if you've been thinking that now might be the time to bring a trusted financial advisor onto your team, I hope this conversation with Payel is showing you how I've really stacked the deck in your favor and created a practice that aligns with your best interests. To schedule your complimentary call, please dial 877-569-5508. Or just go to the show notes for this episode in your podcast app, and there's a link to a contact form there. That number, once again, is 877-569-5508. You can also go to hillaryhendershot.com/36. And I'll repeat that toll-free number at the end of the episode. I have people standing by for your call 24 hours a day, so don't hesitate to call now. I can't wait to talk with you. And now let's get back to the interview with Payel. So you really have big picture oversight. Loring Ward is an organization that manages $14 billion of investor dollars, right. All ordinary investors from $500,000 to maybe $5 million in net worth. What do you see happening in terms of macro trends with women investors? Is that, first of all, what do you see happening? Is it concerning to you or is it exciting for you? What do you see?
So there's so many unique challenges with what's happening with women and with investing. And the challenges that I see is something that's shared with men and women is longevity. And it's not a challenge in a bad way. You know, we think of aging and we think of a negative connotation. I'm getting older. Aging is a wonderful opportunity. Getting older, having a long life is a wonderful opportunity we need to embrace, especially as women, because we are going to outlive our male counterparts. You know, statistically, that's the odds are in our favor. So why not embrace it? And then why not prepare and plan for it? Why not be involved in your financial planning and saving and investing before your husband passes, because now you're forced to look at those documents and those statements and those reports and make those decisions. Why not be part of that from the very beginning? It's not just important to work and earn income. It's also important to see how that income is being spent, saved, and invested and planned for. And doing that very early on is going to be a key to that. So one unique challenge is, of course, preparing and embracing longevity. The other is, you know, preparing and embracing the fact that at some point you're going to have to manage all of this on your own, and having a relationship with a financial advisor, not waiting for some forced event to have to reach out or seek an advisor or fire your quote unquote husband's advisor to find one of yours, but really embracing the fact that we need to be more proactive and we need to have our own financial advisors and we need to have those relationships and talk to our children, talk to our parents, talk to our spouse or our partner. This is an ongoing, just like portfolio construction, for women, being involved with money and with investing is an everyday, all the time thing. It cannot just be picked up and dropped off whenever. It has to be an ongoing thing.
It's a practice.
It's a practice.
And what would you say to someone who was concerned about the cost of a financial advisor who thinks I can't afford it?
You know, I'll tell you this, the best minds in the investing business, the best minds, I'm not going to drop any names, but think about anyone on our investment committee, think about anyone in our think tank. They will tell you with pride that the best money they've ever spent is having a financial advisor help them. They're geniuses. They can do this stuff in their sleep if they want to. Why don't they? Why would they spend the money having all the information and knowledge and experience being professionals in this industry? Why would they go out and hire an advisor? You need an independent perspective, and it's worth the money to separate your own fears and irrationalities, greed, fear away from your decision making and get help from someone who's independent of that, who can guide you, keep you on track, keep you motivated, help you not fall into pitfalls. It's worth every dollar. You must seek, even if you don't do everything your advisor says, you at least should seek their guidance so that you know what they have.
Don't do everything your advisor says.
And I say that because I think women tend to get advice, and I'm sure you've experienced this. Women tend to get the advice of what a model portfolio should look like, and they end up doing what with it? Not much. It's sitting in cash, right?
Yeah.
I mean, tell me it's not true, and I'll be like, wow. But I know it's true because women are more risk averse. And sometimes it takes a very sensitive advisor, a very quote unquote fiduciary advisor to get the fact that I might have to talk to her about risk and risk management and being risk averse way more than I did with her husband or with her son or with her brother. And so getting women and getting folks to actually listen 100% to an advisor is also a challenge and an opportunity.
Right.
Because most folks will, the best you can do is get an advisor and listen to what they're saying and stick with it, right? Stick with it. But there's other variations where people either don't get an advisor because they're so cost sensitive, or in between they get an advisor, they get the advice, and they just don't execute on it because there's something holding them back. So stop and ask, what is holding you back? Is it the advisor? Is it the advice? Is it that you didn't get enough information, education, enough time? Is it not sophisticated enough? Is it too complicated? Stop and ask why you're not actually working with an advisor and fully accepting and implementing what the work is between your advisor and you.
I think as people, and we know this from the study of, for example, cognitive biases and like that, we can suffer from various forms of confusion and myopia about what really is happening in the world. And as an individual investor, as a person running a life, a very complex life, maybe there's things and phenomena you don't know about by no fault of your own, just because it's not what you specialize in. And sometimes an advisor can look at kind of where you're headed and put the right questions in place. So what is the end game here, right? What's the exit plan? Okay, you want to buy that house. When are you going to sell it, right? And that's the question. Asking those questions helps people really think through, like I said, the end game. And it really is all about vision. It's not just about what we're going to do today. Right, because some guy on a stage said you should flip houses. It's about where are we going with this?
So, I mean, to that point, I do this day in and day out, but I have an advisor, and I think it's worth every penny because I need that independent outside perspective to check myself. It's the best practice to do that.
Let me circle back here because I pulled this statistic and I don't want to waste it. According to a recent poll by Tiller LLC and Worth FM, 76% of women believe that Wall Street doesn't have the consumer's best interest at heart. And some have theorized that may be the reason women avoid investing. Why do you think this is the viewpoint of women out there? And what would you say to those 76% of women who think they're not being served? And it sounds like they think they even can't be served by the financial services industry.
Wall Street, brokerage houses, they can provide information, reports, analyst reports, research. Sometimes what's not disclosed is the conflict of interest. Maybe they're researching a stock that they have a vested interest in, but you just don't know that. Now, what women have this one advantage. They have great instincts and intuition. So I think they pick that up without knowing that information. And so maybe that statistic is really sad if it's true, and I'm sure it is, that, women are avoiding Wall Street and they don't know why. They don't feel like they won't be served, they won't be heard, they won't be, attended to. Probably because they're catching on to something that happens behind closed doors, which is there is a tendency to take every bit of research you see and know what is the conflict of interest here. And that's where we don't rely on outside analyst reports and such from Wall Street, only because we feel like there's noise in that information. And so what's cleaner is to really serve clients based on basic principles that we know are true, not that we believe are true. So we don't have to rely on someone else's opinion or a rating or report. I think that's the gap between Wall Street and Main Street, is there are conflicts of interest there that are hidden and not disclosed, or not disclosed properly or big enough for someone to see and make a decision on whether to use that information. It's an information problem. Not all information has conflict of interest, but how do you know it does or does not is fuzzy still.
So is the answer to a woman who doesn't have a lot of time but really could use professional advice in her life, is the answer, how do you find an advisor that you can trust? Is it to first look for a fiduciary and then interview several people? What do you think is the solution?
Well, the solution is that you have to be part of the community. So find an investing community. What does that mean? That means that if you're a woman, then find other female investors. If you're a woman, try to find other female advisors. I'm not saying you need to go hire one, but create a village. It's just like being a parent. Well, when you're having a newborn, you're going to go hang out with other parents that just have newborns. So you have some support. You don't have to do everything they do. You don't have to raise your child the way they raise their children, but it gives you a shoulder to cry on. It allows you to get support, get help, get encouragement, be a sounding board. But also, if you need a referral to a great advisor, you'll get it, and it'll be an advisor that's helping people like you, and that's their expertise. So I think it's really about creating a village and a community. As women, and this, we nowadays operate without a village. We're nuclear families where both parents are working, and everyone's working so hard. No one has time, no one has energy. And I think that's the important part. Someone asked me the other day, how do you guys do it? You have 4 kids, you both are working, how do you do it? How do you do it all? And the truth is it's 30% my husband, 30% me, and the rest, 40% we outsource. And we have figured out how to outsource, how to create a community, how to ask for help, and not feel bad about asking for help. And I know I'm totally talking about something that's not technical or financial. It's philosophical. Yeah. But, that's one of the challenges moving forward in the next 20 years or 30 years. We need that community. We need that village. And it needs to be when it comes to investing as well. And then to your other point, yes, please interview many different types of advisors. People always ask me, when you were an advisor, did you just attract young, successful women because that's what you were when you were an advisor? And I said, no. I had a very diverse client base because I worked with folks that were retired, business owners, young savers, and I didn't do the whole thing where any amount of money was too little for me. I helped people genuinely if there was a fit or a match on the phone. I didn't care if the company thought that $2 million was not enough money to take the client on or give high level of service to the client. I worked with everyone fairly and equally and embraced whoever wanted to work with me. Mm-hmm. And so be diverse, interview a lot of people, ask them the questions on how often do you meet? How often do we talk? Do you call me? Do I call you? If I have a question, how do I call you? How do I reach you? Are you going to be there for me for my life events? I mean, those are the things to really probe on. Then there's the technical questions and there's that technical fit. If you have a philosophical standpoint, viewpoint, you want to make sure that there's a match or fit there.
Amazing. Is there anything else that you would leave people with? I don't want to put you on the spot, but is there anything that you would say to the Profit Boss audience, a woman out there who really wants to be successful, but is grasping for where is that community?
It's out there. The village and the community is out there. And I think the best thing we can do as women for other women as well as for everyone is to put ourselves out there in a giving mode and So be there for another woman, be there for another upcoming person. It doesn't have to be male or female. Be there as a offer yourself up, and everyone has such a great set of experiences. We don't even realize how much potential and how much knowledge and information and wisdom we have. So putting ourselves out there and creating a community when there feels like there is not one, there is a community of one, and it starts with you. And if you're there for other people, they'll be there for other people. And that's something that I've tried to use in my life and my career. I've tried to control what I can control, ignore what I can't control, not worry about the things that are superficial, and really truly say, what can I do to help and how can I get help? So if I had to leave this interview with one thing, would be that the village is there and it starts with you, and it's a village of one now, but we can all kind of bond together and share ideas and be better for it financially and in life.
Amazing. Payel, thank you for being here. Thanks
you
for helping me both serve my clients, and thanks for your sage words of wisdom to the Profit Boss community.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Profit Boss, I'm eager to talk with you if, after listening to this interview, you think you'd like to work with an advisor who takes time and conscious effort to assemble a team of remarkable resources like you've heard about in today's episode, all aligned to support you in achieving your goals. My clients come first, and I can promise you a world-class investment experience and the kind of relationship with me that you've come to expect from this podcast. To schedule a complimentary call with me where we'll get right to the heart of what's going on in your financial life, and together we can determine what you think are the next best steps for you. Call 877-569-5508 now and schedule that call. Again, that number is 877-569-5508, or you can also go to hillaryhendershot.com/36 and schedule your call directly after filling out a contact form. If you've already scheduled your call, I'm looking forward to talking with you. And if you're on the fence, just do it. Just book the call. Take that next step that's going to get you on the path you want to be on. Call 877-569-5508 today.
Thank you for listening to Profit Boss Radio, where creating success on our own terms happens every day. You're not alone in your journey to a rich life, and that's why Hillary is here to add value in each and every episode. See you next time on the podcast for women and money.